Hi, and welcome to another edition of Sartorial Talks. We're going to do something fun today, something that hasn't been done before, and I haven't seen it anywhere on YouTube yet. And by the way, I'm wearing a tie. You just did an episode on ties, so
That's right.
I was completely inspired. So I hope this episode also will be something that's inspirational. But we're going to talk about how to make bad suits look better.
Oh, well, that's a good menu.
It is, and it took us this many years in Sartorial Talks for it even to occur to us to approach a subject like this. And we're not talking about just maybe tailoring errors, but we're also talking about suits that maybe are off the peg or maybe not that high level of a suit,
For example,
you can upgrade it.
Yeah, you are very excited to wear a suit. It happens to me.
Yes.
A long time ago when I remember I had, sometimes you keep your suits from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and for whatever reason, you are excited again and say, okay, I'm going to maybe try to wear this again. And you just notice, you're not exactly the same size as you used to be. Maybe you've been drinking a little bit more beer.
Or maybe the styles changed
or the style
a little
changed,
bit. Yes.
or the lapels are too small, and you have a big color gap, and you don't know really what to do, and you're very disappointed. Or it can happen also that you buy something a little bit off the rack very quickly, and you didn't really realize, and you have a very hard seller, sales associate to say, "Oh,
you
good
look
on you."
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
You look amazing.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you gotta
and
buy
I have
it,
the
of
same,
course.
and blah blah blah, and then you go home and something's off.
Exactly.
Right? So this is a very good topic.
That's really funny that you said that, because I think the last comment on one of our sartorial talks was about not looking like a 1980s banker.
Yes.
And someone said, well, actually, I am a 1980s banker. So does this mean I can't wear my suits? Okay, this would actually approach that subject as well.
Yeah. But I think the main point of what you have as an idea, and once again, I don't know exactly what she's going to do. I have the big subject, but I'm here to react. As usual, we love to do this. But the thing is that I think everybody can relate somehow to this. How to, even if sometimes you can have some mistakes made. It happens from time to time, and then when you don't fix it on the spot, you forget about it, and then after a while you need to have. So I hope you're going to give us some techniques.
Let's jump in. Okay,
go.
first thing, most obvious, and we've talked about it a lot. Other channels are talking about it a lot too. That's the collar gap.
Yeah.
And so we can drop in a little video of when we were describing collar gap earlier.
It's difficult for me to have one because that's a collar gap. Okay, that's the most. Okay. The problem with color gaps, my love, is that since you've been telling everybody about the color gap, we have so many people telling us, I see color gaps everywhere. It becomes some kind of an obsession for many people.
It does. After a while, you begin to relax a little bit, but when you first are aware of the collar gap, it can become an obsession.
Exactly. So what do we do if we have a color gap?
So there's some things you can do. Okay, if you find that you have a collar gap, and it's not comfortable to be pulling like this on your suit all day long, although you can walk like this.
Of course,
and
that's the best way to do it.
I mean, it almost looks a little debonair to walk like this, but it can be a little odd. But if you can pull it off, you can actually walk like this.
Yes.
But if you want to somehow mask that collar gap, you can do two things. Mm-hmm. You can use a scarf underneath your jacket.
It works very well,
I see this with several influencers. They don't even have a collar gap, but they're wearing the scarf anyway.
I did it in Petit Uomo with my Calabrese scarf, remember?
Calabrese.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people loved it.
Yes.
And another thing you could do is just pull your shirt collar over your jacket. A lot of people wear their shirt collar over their jacket anyway for a more relaxed look, more casual look.
It's more a summer thing, I would say that.
Maybe spring, summer.
Yeah,
that's
spring,
true.
summer. I don't see doing this with my shirt in the middle of winter, but
it
because
on
you
the
have
shirt.
to wear it without a tie. That's the thing.
Exactly.
So,
you have to
and
wear
I think it's more feminine for me. I mean, in my idea, you do it very well. Even if you don't have a collar gap, you like to put your shirt above. It's very 70s.
Well, also Waco with the rake, he does this constantly. Constantly.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
For your suits that have a collar gap, wear your shirt out. It's a more casual look, but it also can be quite, I would say, quite stylish. If
so
you do
it means that if you have a collar gap, ladies and gentlemen, this is not thanks to my beautiful wife Sonya. It's not the end of the world.
No.
But the best remedy is to do this constantly.
Yes,
and
you can do this.
And it's very
it just looks
easy
like you're
to do
straightening
that.
up a bit.
Exactly.
You can even walk like this. I mean,
Exactly.
You can go too far with it, but it can work.
Good one.
All right, so another one that we're going to address, and this is something that's very small, but I just did it because I happen not to have a lapel buttonhole on my lapel.
Okay.
And sometimes you have a very poor lapel buttonhole. Now you think, why is she talking about lapel buttonholes? Who cares?
Because it's beautiful.
Well, it is beautiful, and it's also a little code that tailors will use sometimes to know if your suit's a high-level suit or not. Like I'm very gently looking down at your buttonhole, and I can see your suit is Milanese, and it's quite high level, and it automatically tells me that your suit's probably high level as well.
It's chiffonily bespoke.
Of course.
Yes.
So what I've done is I've taken a lapel pen.
So what's the point that you're talking about?
The point is you can either not have a buttonhole, or you could have a contrasting buttonhole that you dislike. And I know you dislike this a lot. I'm not as extreme as you are, but you really don't like that. Some of my jackets have contrasting buttonholes, and I would prefer that they didn't. So there's some things you can do. You can take a lapel pen.
Yes.
Now there's some wider lapel pens. There's also a brooch.
Yes.
Or there's some smaller lapel pins like I'm wearing. I happen not to have a buttonhole on my lapel, but I put a small lapel pin here that we got in Japan.
Yeah.
Remember?
It's very rare not to have a buttonhole. Normally, women may not have buttonholes on their lapels and not pockets inside for obvious reasons. But for men, it's rare. It's rare to be seen. But what is more common to see is a disgusting buttonhole that is really, really bad and very small and not neat. And well, the fact about contrasted buttonhole is that most of the people, they do it on purpose.
I know.
And so, but after a while, when you're gonna see, ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to impose our views on that. We can understand people want to have fun and have a contrasted buttonhole. I like, even Italians, sometimes they like to have the 3 colors of the Italian flags, for example, on their buttonholes. Yeah. But you will see that the more you become a seasoned sartorialist, the more you dress up, the more you will look for discretion. And the way to, let's say, hide this kind of detail you may not like in a couple of years, it's, of course, to use some brooches or lapel pins, jewelry in general.
And, of course, the third area is if your buttonhole is a cheap suit, from a cheap suit, you may want to, of course, mask it with some kind of jewelry.
Or you can go to an alteration tailor and ask him to change for a Milanese buttonhole.
That was the next part. You can also have your buttonhole changed.
Yes, a lot of people are doing this, actually, because once again, if you're not too much in the tutorial universe, you may say, oh my God, they spend 10 minutes on buttonhole. Yes, but it's like, I don't know, if you're in cars, maybe you notice things, a little detail on a car that makes a whole difference. Same thing for the watches. You notice something that only connoisseurs can appreciate. And this little buttonhole here, this is for us, is some kind of a recognition sign of the quality of the suit.
Sort of a code almost.
Yeah, and it's, this is why we love this.
That's right.
It's a little bit snub, but we like it.
I don't want to shock anyone with this one, but it is a sort of a code in the sartorial world.
Exactly.
And you put it very well. All right, next issue. This is a huge one. Yeah. This is when your button stance is completely off with the proportions of your body.
You have to explain what a button stance is.
And that's very simple to explain. Your button stance is simply where the operating button is on your jacket or coat.
Basically, where you button your jacket.
Yes. Everyone usually has one button and one buttonhole. They button it, and this shows exactly where your button stance is. Now, typically, your button stance will be somewhere around your actual waist. Back in the day, I would say more than a decade ago, Paul Stewart, which is a very progressive brand.
In New York.
Yeah, and I think maybe Canada as well. But
I think the Paul Stewart is more in New York. Yeah.
So they were very stylish. They were sort of competing with Tom Ford aesthetic when Tom Ford first came out. And they were putting really high buttonholes.
With their collection, Phineas Cole.
Exactly,
it comes back
Phineas
to my
Cole.
mind. Yeah. I don't know if they still do this these days, but it was a little bit more stylish, more refined collection they had.
Exactly.
Very tapered waist.
Giving a nuance and a flair.
We're going to show pictures from the past. I don't know if they still do it now.
And so they were pushing the upper limits of having a high buttonhole. Yeah. But it got to the point to where tailors and I shouldn't say buttonhole, button stance. Yeah. Tailors and even like cheaper suit brands and even nicer suit brands.
They were tried to do the same.
Yeah, but they were going to extremes so that the the operating button was almost
too high.
where the chest is, which makes you look like you're walking on stilts.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's bizarre to have a waist button on your chest.
Yeah. And it also looks like you wanted to, you try to prove yourself that you are in good shape.
Yes.
That you are, you are fit, and in fact you're not. Because some people can't even breathe because the button stand was so high.
Yes.
And on the contrary, when it's too low, but that's on very cheap suits. I mean, it's
you
less
rarely
usual.
See that. That's
but
unusual.
you rarely see it. But I've seen it.
Yes.
I've seen it in super nasty, cheap suit. It's not about the money.
It's
about
really,
the
really
quality.
low.
Really low. It makes you look like, make like you short. It's very, very bizarre. The button stance is very important.
This might be one of the most important subjects we're speaking about in this talk. And let's talk a little bit about your body. Okay, say that you have a really low torso. And some men, they look like they have really short legs and a really long upper body.
Exactly.
Okay, you can look at your jackets and play with where your operating button is and see what balances out your body the best. And the nice thing is, if you're doing bespoke or even made to measure, you can actually request where you want your buttonhole to be, or your button stance to be on your jacket.
It is probably one of the first things to learn when you're a client on made to measure or even bespoke. It's easier on bespoke, but made to measure, because normally when you they use try on jackets. And you have all the freedom in the world to say, okay, this is buttoning too high, maybe a little bit lower. This is something that not everybody knows, and it makes a huge difference.
It's a fundamental.
1 centimeter of the positioning of the button on the jacket can literally make or break your silhouette.
Well put,
so this is very, very important, and it's easy for a made-to-measure operation to put it exactly where you want.
Right, and you may remember, to finish out this point, we talked about a special test called the Napoleon test. So if you put your hand on your hips, as you would normally do, you can say that's probably around where your navel is.
Yes.
Okay, if you're Lindsay Lohan, you have a navel up to here, but because you were created in a different way. But you can do 2 checks. You can put your hands on your hips.
Yeah. Or you can do this.
Also, yes, or you can find your navel.
Yeah.
And then put your 4 fingers, like Napoleon, right there
like
at that line.
Napoleon. I call it the Napoleon test. I invented it. And it's you put your how do you call pinky? Your pinky?
Your
little
small,
finger. It's a petit doigt in French. You put it on your navel or just above it, and then if you put this and above your navel, and then that will be more or less your natural upper limit of your buttonhole.
Which you can have a natural button stance right at your waist, or you can go 4 fingers above, but don't go any further up, or it's going to throw everything off.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I must say all this may sound a little bit complex and over technical and over complicated, and it's not. It's just common sense. And it's good sometimes to step back to our discussion and say, all this should remain a pleasure. So don't be obsessed too much and say, I want to know the millimeter of my button stand, blah, blah. No, we just give you some kind of, we share our experience.
But really, I said I'm sorry, but we really shouldn't apologize, because if you're investing in a bespoke suit, you could pay up to $14,000 or $15,000 or as little as $3,000. But the point is, you want to know these things because it is an investment.
I agree with you. I just wanted to say, let's keep the pleasure part out of it still.
Of course, have fun if you can, of course.
Of course. Okay, let's continue.
Let's say it's a problem and you have a lot of suits where your button stance is totally messed up.
Sure.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah,
do you know? What would you do?
I have no idea. I will maybe wear my jacket open.
Yes. There's 2 things you can do.
That's what I do when I have a little bit of belly. Sometimes, when you eat too much, you open your jacket.
Yes.
And it's fine. I mean, the etiquette normally is that it's better to keep it closed in most of the situation, except when you inside a place. You have the right to, you have the right to do whatever you want, of course. But normally the etiquette is you can open your jacket when you're inside. Okay, and so this is, everybody knows that after a good French meal with a couple of appetizer, an hors d'oeuvre, and then 2 main dishes, and or a meal in Napoli, in Italy, with 11 courses. Believe me, you have to open your jacket.
You do, and that's interesting. You said the etiquette is you can open your jacket inside.
Yes,
meaning it should be buttoned outside.
Always,
typically.
normally.
And then when you sit down, you unbutton it. When you stand, you button it back.
Exactly.
This is the thing.
Okay.
All right, so we that's one solution. There's another solution.
I don't know.
And so I'll just tell you a very quick story. I just spoke with someone who had a bespoke tailor make his jacket. He said the button stance is off. He feels a little bit uncomfortable, but when he wears it open, he feels fine. But he likes to button his coat.
Okay.
So his suit coat. So what he could do is turn his 2-piece suit into a 3-piece using an odd waistcoat.
Okay.
And an odd waistcoat's just a contrasting color from your suit. So it's another solution.
Yes.
If your button stance is really completely twisted
Oh,
off.
I agree with you.
You make an odd waistcoat.
Yeah.
And
Vest.
obviously you're going to leave your jacket open constantly.
That works. It's a little bit strange, but I agree with you. It works. It works. If you have no other solution, it works.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And so waistcoat is going to be your solution for a couple of things. So if you can, when you get a 2-piece suit, why not go ahead and have a vest made as well if you're able to afford it?
Yeah. I still don't understand who's saying waistcoat, who's saying vest.
Okay, so the English say waistcoat, and as a matter of fact, the word waistcoat is why I got interested in bespoke tailoring, because it completely fascinated me. Being an American, I didn't realize what a waistcoat meant.
Yeah.
Everyone says vest in
Vest
America.
in America, they say vest.
Yes.
Okay.
And so researching the waistcoat really kind of triggered my obsession with bespoke tailoring.
Yeah.
So
What
it
is
was a good
interesting,
question.
this is a strange animal, the waistcoat.
It is.
And the vest, because I see more and more young gentlemen who are entering the sartorial world, or are entering the dressing up arena with waistcoat, because they are fascinated by that. This is what happened to you, right? The vest.
It is.
And on top of that, I see a lot more and more young gentlemen wearing a vest without a jacket, because they feel like, for example, our cameraman, this is what he does. He loves waistcoat. He loves wearing a vest without a jacket, because it feels that you are dressed, but not too much. So it's very versatile.
Yeah. Some of the purists really don't like that, but I think it can look quite smart at work.
Very
especially
smart.
if you're hot and you want to remove your coat and you have a waistcoat on, it can look, I think,
even
very
at your
smart.
wedding, if you have a contrasted waistcoat, but it's late at night, you've been dancing a lot, then you want to remove, you still super chic. I think it's kind of a, sometimes the purists are, it's of course, if you follow the etiquette to the teeth, you say that, of course. But honestly, a beautiful waistcoat, specifically if you wear a tie, you just make a movement a little bit with your tie like that, with a waistcoat button. In your office, you don't have to sweat all day long. It's very agreeable. And so I like this vest, I would like to say fashion, but this way it's rage these days. So I would even advise the people to go immediately for a 3-piece.
Yes.
So that you
And why
can
not?
really,
It makes
because with
another
a 3-piece
outfit.
suit, you can really have different outfits, literally.
Why wouldn't you want to make more outfits?
Yes, give
Exactly.
3-piece a chance.
That's it. I remember that. So another thing that we're going to speak about is the next point is when your pocket positioning is really off. So say you have a chest pocket that's way up here. It's a quick signal of a cheap suit or someone who really doesn't know where to put the pockets.
Yes.
And when you have a chest pocket really high up on your shoulder, it looks unnatural. You look at it, you don't really know what's off, but something's off. And when someone describes it, you're like, oh, you're right. So typically the way the pocket will go at the armpit.
Yes.
Or at arm side, you like to say. And also if the lower pockets are off, the hip pockets, and they're placed right in front of the jacket, it can look really bizarre. And again, you don't know what's going on, but there's 2 pockets facing you. They're called hip pockets for a reason. It's because they should move more towards the hips.
Of course.
And so it's a problem. Of course, you're not going to get your pockets removed and put back on. It's not going to happen.
I have no idea what the solution is for this kind of problem, because pockets are not easy to
you know
handle.
what? There's really no solution except don't draw attention to the pockets. For example, don't put a pocket square in a pocket that's up on your shoulder because it's going to be obvious, you know, that pocket is set off. And also another thing, if if your two hip pockets are directly in front of your body,
yes,
and not placed around the hip area, you'll once again have to leave your jacket open, so it doesn't draw attention.
So don't make it too much notice, and don't put too much stuff, for example, in your pockets, which
yes.
I never do anyway.
You
because
don't.
of me, I dislike having anything in my pockets. I prefer to have a bag, or to be more honest, to have my wife's purse.
So
actually,
you can put things in my
put
purse,
everything
right?
in her purse, because I hate having too much thing in my pocket. But if you are used to it, if you have a pocket placement problem, don't put anything in your... Basically, don't draw attention to it.
Don't draw attention to it. If you have a double-breasted suit, you really you can't leave it open normally, but Hugo, in the dead heat of summer, he does leave his double-breasted suits
I'm
open.
leaving it open more and more, but this time I understand the purists. They say you never wear a bespoke, a double-breasted suit open. I do.
Well,
because it creates some kind of flair. I don't know.
It does. And at Petit Uomo in summer, it's sort of the go-to thing because it's so hot. So
exactly.
You have to open it up.
Anyway, I'm 60-year-old now. I've been teaching the rules for over a decade now, and I'm the first to try to break them a little bit. And I just want to have fun now and be comfortable in everything I do.
Good. I see no problem with that.
That's cool, baby. I love you for that.
Next area. Okay, that is when your trousers are just too big, and it's ruining your whole suit. You can't even go out because you don't have a trouser that'll match your suit coat. And so you just feel like, wow, I don't want to put on weight. Okay, you can get them, of course, tailored.
Yes.
But that's going to take some time. If you need to wear the suit right away, you can do what? If you have really large trousers and you want to wear them anyway.
I would say suspenders.
Yes, use suspenders. Or
I bet.
Some people say braces.
I guarantee you, I didn't know. Huh?
You did not. If you've lost weight,
braces.
Yes,
say in
put
English.
the braces on under. It's going to look kind of cool to have the drapey pants anyway.
Yeah.
And then later on, of course, you can get them altered if you see you're going to keep the weight off.
Yeah.
But you always say don't alter because you're probably going to put that weight back on.
Well, I mean, don't alter. Don't. Well, it's just. I observed life. I mean, it happened to me so many times. You're so happy because you've been going to the gym and then you lost weight. And you run to your tailor and say, oh, you have to tighten my suit because look, I'm very fit. And then, 3 weeks after, a few meals and
maybe 3 months,
a few parties, and then you put on the kilos you lost. Maybe not all of them, but still a little bit. And then you go back. This time you don't rush. You take the service entry door, the back door of your tailor. You do this, and you go and say, "I'm so sorry. Can you Can you remove the alteration?" And of course, your tailor, if he's experienced, he will look at you and say, "Okay, next time, you don't ask me to alter when you lose weight, or because it's something that it's well." After, if you have the capacity and the wallet and the means and the passion to have a wardrobe like mine, well, Sonya can tell I have a lot of different sizes in my
you do, but
wardrobe.
hey, you have to confess, you have a couple of suits you've taken in and out probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, but now I'm vaccinated among that. I never do it again anymore.
You said,
Never.
I stop.
Never, because you feel so bad. You feel so ashamed to go back. When you go to your tailor to say, "Oh, you're gonna tighten my suit because I lost weight," you feel like you're the hero of the day.
Yes.
You feel like I'm gonna. And then, but it's one of the
then
reverse
afterwards.
Then you go back and say you have to reopen the suit for 3 centimeters. That you don't feel like a hero. Absolutely not. So
you do not.
Just don't touch your suits.
And maybe some people don't know, but if you get a bespoke suit on Savile Row or at some of the major bespoke houses, generally you have service for life.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And they don't have the right to say no, I'm sure. It's just a gentleman agreement. Normally,
that's it.
You are service for life.
Yes.
Even if some people will, after 2 or 3 times, they will say, hey,
enough.
Yes, a little
probably,
bit. Huh?
Probably.
Anyway.
Yes, good. Okay, next problem is very pervasive, and it's very difficult to get around it.
I try to look at the notes.
I'm going to put it out there anyway, and that's when your suit coat or your jacket is just too short.
Okay.
And on a guy, it's really problematic because if it's not covering your rump, it looks a little bit
covering your what?
I just say your rump because
your rump?
Just to add some
you
kind
mean
of
your butt?
Your butt.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can say.
Yeah. Ton cul in French.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
it. That's it. Okay, if it's not covering your butt, and it's coming up, your jacket's coming up too high, it looks a little bit.
It doesn't look good.
Not
at all.
elegant. We could say you lost the elegance
It's a
factor.
catastrophe.
Completely lost the elegance
How do you
factor.
do? What do you do?
This is when I'm going to say you can try going completely monochromatic. You can try with your shirt and your suit. If everything's monochromatic,
That's a good idea.
people are not going to go. Notice right away that you have a very short suit coat or jacket.
Yes.
And you can try it, and you'll know when you look in the mirror if it's working or not. But if you're blending everything together, you notice less the discrepancies.
That's a good idea. I must say, I have nothing to add on that except that be very careful with the length of the jacket.
Yes.
It's a basic.
And so how would you
It has to cover your...
recommend what someone should do when they're determining the length of their jacket?
Just cover your butt, basically. It goes it has to cover your butt. It can never be above it. I mean, it's obvious, and not even halfway. It has to cover tes fesses in French, we say, because it's just natural.
Exactly.
You know, and I've seen that was a kind of a fashion I would say 5-6 years ago with this shorter jacket.
Mm-hmm. It was
Unless
difficult.
you have a beautiful butt and you really want to show it to the world, that's another story. It's not what we do here. But people are working hard on that, so why not? But for gentlemen in general, it's better to cover your butt, and it's more elegant.
I'll just throw it out there. Yeah. Okay, if you're one of those guys who has a really long torso and short legs, I can understand why you want to make the jacket a little bit shorter.
That's right.
But you can go just at the beginning of where your anatomy begins there.
Yes.
But also you can go to a little bit longer trouser legs.
That's right.
To balance things out a little bit.
That's right. In order to strengthen your legs visually.
Exactly.
This is very technical. I love that.
So
my wife, she's a savant. You understand?
I don't know if I'm savant, but I'm very analytical, and in my jobs in the past, I've done analytical type work.
But anyway,
sure. So let's go to moth holes.
What?
Moth holes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've all experienced it when the moths just decide to feast on your clothes. Say you're out of town or you've locked some clothes away for a while and you want to bring them back out seasonally and you see the moth holes.
It is shocking.
Devastating.
It's shocking.
It's
Everybody had to go through this.
I mean...
in France, we call it les mythes. And it's really, really bad. And it happens to all of us.
It does.
No matter how cautious we are with our suit, no matter how much product you put around it, how much cedar spray is what we use here, if you put them in bags and everything, at one moment, the moth will find her way, specifically with cashmere.
Specifically, it's a magnet.
They
for
love
moths.
cashmere.
Oh,
my
it's
goodness.
Incredible.
They have taste.
So let's talk about prevention, because we've lived in two different places that have been built in the 1600s.
Yes.
So it's more challenging when you're living in a historical home.
Yes.
So first, of course, let's talk about prevention. We can say last year we decided to order zip bags and spray a natural cedar spray inside the zip bags and store our out-of-season clothes in these zip bags.
Yeah.
It looks,
so far it works.
Yes, you need transparent zip bags though. Otherwise, you drive yourself crazy opening and closing them to see what's inside.
Well, it depends how many suits you have, but for us, driving us crazy.
Of course.
For
So
sure.
something transparent if possible.
Even if some people, I remember Stephen Hitchcock saying in one of the videos, something like that, even this is not full protection.
Yes.
It's basically impossible to have a full protection. But so far, transparent bag, you make sure you brush your suits before because they can have eggs.
That's good. That's a good point.
Okay?
Thank
you brush
for
the suit,
reminding me.
You make sure you spray a little bit. We say natural because otherwise, if you lose some chemical, it can really give you a headache very fast. It's very strong.
Some people are sensitive. I am.
I don't like that. So iron, and then we use a little this wood. I saw it's cedar wood.
Yes, on the top of the hanger.
On the top, and then you can put it on the wood, not on the suit directly.
Exactly.
And it works. I mean, since we came back from America a couple of months ago, we didn't open all the suits, but so far so good.
So far impeccable. But Stephen, he has so many suits that he's working on.
Oh, yeah,
he
that's
had
his
to call
job.
in a professional and make sure that was taken care of. So for some of you, you may have to call a professional and have a treatment done.
Okay,
Every so many
and
years,
then you can have invisible mending if.
Thank you.
Yes, this is very important.
That's
of course.
that. Okay, Prince Charles is known for, of course, wearing bespoke suits, and his way of being is to mend clothes and keep them long term, because he finds a sentimental attachment
like me.
with his suits. He
Like
doesn't
all of
want
us.
to let them go because of moth holes or some kind of problem. And so he's known for repair.
Yeah.
So if you can get into that mentality, I think you're going to see, well, not only from a sustainability standpoint, but also from a sentimental standpoint, that you can retain your suits, and maybe even if they're bespoke suits, pass them down to the next generation. But you have to do invisible mending if you have moth holes. Now, Comte de Luca recently recommended someone in Paris.
Well, they have one, but it's a secret. They used. The
I didn't
problem with
realize.
invisible mending, it's an art almost. This is, this kind of. We've seen some crazy example of people mending. You don't see it. Jenny Chelegin had one of my suits mended also. Invisible mending, an electric blue suit. You don't see anything. It's impeccable.
It is impeccable.
Because it's an art. They're taking threads from inside the suit. They are putting it on. It's fantastic. It's very complicated.
It's almost a crisscross threads that are.
The thing is that even in Paris, in a town like Paris, it's a craft that is disappearing little by little.
But it's called invisible mending. At
Yes.
least you can research it, and don't feel bad about putting your suits in for repair. Be patient. The whole bespoke culture is about patience.
Yeah, but I wanted to say, you interrupted me on
That's
that,
right.
on my how do you say that? I want to plead for invisible mending. If some people know how to do it or want to learn it, there's a lot of work in this area. A lot of people will like, because it's not only about moth. It's about you crush you damage your suit, or you have a hole, or you tear it, and then you go. If you have this capacity of doing this, is a fantastic business, and so many people are looking for a good. You say a mender or invisible mending atelier?
Invisible mending is atelier.
This is a fantastic. You can find it a few in Paris for wool, knitted. For example, that's easier, but for fabric, it's more and more rare. But there are a few. Don't ask us addresses, because normally when you have an address, it's like alteration tailor. You don't exchange your address.
Can I make a request?
Yes.
Those of you out there who are in the bespoke culture, if you know people who do invisible mending, will you please put it in the comments, and we'll like it and bring it up to the top, maybe pin it.
Yes.
So that would be very helpful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We are always in demand for this kind of thing. And normally, most of the time, beautiful people on top of that.
Exactly. All right, we're 2 away from finishing.
Let's go.
You may have to help me with the next one, because I really am not quite sure about the answer.
Okay. I do my best.
Sometimes, and especially with more inexpensive suits, or maybe suits that have just been a little off on the tailoring expertise, the armholes are too big and too low. And so what happens when you have big armholes? Because typically we have smaller armholes that are
very
higher,
small, very
which
high.
makes your mobility really good without
if you have a small,
jacket.
if your armhole is too low, your suit will do this when you raise your arms.
Because it's sewn down here, so it's going to raise everything up.
You know where I see it the most?
Where?
Preachers.
Oh, pastors.
Pastors, yeah. When they preach,
you're right.
and they normally preach like that, and most of them, when they raise their arm, they literally goes like that. I say, this is a chiffonelli suit, so I can raise my arm. It doesn't. It moves
not bad at all.
No, it's fantastic. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
So, I have no idea what we can do against that, darling. Remove your jacket.
One thing is don't raise your arms. You can eat with your arms to your side and not raise your. But this is difficult, right?
I don't know what to do with that.
The only thing I could think of is just wear that suit for a photograph where you're in a portrait and you're keeping your arms down. But honestly, I think that is going to be a detriment to your suit, and I don't have a solution for it except to prevent it.
Yeah, me neither.
And the one way to prevent it is to test the suit out. When you get fitted, or if you're buying off the peg, to at least see how low that armhole is. Do some motion and see if everything's shifting around or if it's staying put.
And it's physics. You have to understand that it's not only high, it's small armholes.
Yes.
This is not only about the height, it's about the size of
because
the
if you have a
armhole.
small armhole,
If
it
you
will
have a
be
small
high.
armhole, the shoulder will be, the attachment of the foot will be bigger than the armhole. So you have more space to move. It's very easy to understand. And of course, if it's too low, your jacket will move with you. So, well, my advice for preachers and pastors is to just go and find a good tailor, because you have to raise your arm when you speak about Jesus. And we understand that. You're very passionate. But at the same time, it's a little bit taking, I don't know. I mean, us, it's our business. So we look at that and say, oh, my goodness gracious, this guy is going to fly away with his suit, you know. But, well, it's a real problem. And it's not difficult to fix. It's just being aware of what you buy.
Well, it's difficult to fix, but it's not difficult to prevent.
Yeah, to prevent, sorry.
Yes.
It's impossible to fix, basically.
Yes, I think it is impossible to fix.
You can't do anything
I've
for
heard
that.
it is, yes. Last thing drives me insane is when your buttons are falling off of your jacket.
Oh,
or you
well,
have
it happens
loose
to
buttons.
everybody.
Or you have loose buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Some tailors are impeccable. Pino Peluso never had a button ever fall off my jacket or anything that he's made that I've seen from you, because he is so extreme with making sure those buttons are there. They're going to stick. They're not going to move.
Because he's sewing them with a foot.
Yes.
We call it a chicken foot. A chicken foot.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a way of sewing a button and making super strong, but it still can fall, baby. It's just physics.
It can. Yeah. But some tailors are really more fastidious about making sure those are sticking. You could probably request that type of stitch on your buttons to prevent it. Yeah. Speaking of buttons, in that same vein, another problem is when you're seeing cheap plastic buttons on a suit, which is very common if you buy off the peg from some big brands.
Unfortunately.
And so what can you do?
I don't know, baby.
Replace the buttons.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's, you can get some horn buttons.
This is what I did on this one.
Yes, but that was to turn it into a blazer.
Yeah, this was a suit jacket, and I turned it into a blazer simply by changing the buttons. Yes. And it looks like a blazer, but it was a suit jacket at the beginning. But my question is for you, darling, what do you do if your buttons is falling? You have to know how to sew it again by yourself.
Of course, you can learn how to sew.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a very good ability in life. Secret, I'm not very good at that, to be honest with you, and I should be very good at that.
I think you could learn.
Yeah, but you're very good at that, right?
I wouldn't say very good. I don't know how to do the chicken foot, but I know what to do to make it look decent.
The chicken foot, I think, is just that you turn many
You're
times.
looping around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's quite easy, actually. You go inside and then you loop around many times, and then it's more solid. Right. But what about this fall? There's another question about that. What about if you lose your button?
That's exactly what I was going to say next. Is
that
the thing you have to really focus on is having one specific place for loose buttons. Non-negotiable. You talk about stable data. Hugo has taught me something early on in our relationship, is that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, he also has another definition of sanity, and that's to have a few things. Like for me, it was my glasses. That's your stable data. So if I put my glasses the same place every time I take them off, I have a place in each room, I don't lose my glasses. I've saved a lot of time. I feel more sane. The same thing with the buttons. It's to train
your brain to have a few things that are stable, always the same.
A few things.
A few things, like your wallet, for example, your passport. I mean, important things. And the theory is that when you have a stable data, you know that your wallet is always at the same place and your glasses are always at the same place or same kind of place.
Yes.
If you move around, if you go to hotels, so you put it always on the side of your bed, for example,
or in the safe, or whatever.
It brings you sanity.
Yes,
that's and on the contrary, if you don't have stable data in life, it brings confusion, chaos, and insanity.
And we're not saying you have to be ultra organized and get everything. Everything has its place. No, we're talking about choose 3 things in your life that you always know where those things are.
Yeah, and buy suits that and make sure the tailor is providing an extra set of buttons, and that's probably the most important thing.
I didn't have that one.
Well, that's
good.
the
and
normally
they do that. They'll put it in your pocket.
Most of them.
But you lose those. This is why this has to be a random stable data thing. You have one place for all those buttons. There's one drawer, one box. Every single loose button that you ever have goes in that one place.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit.
Yeah, and it's a very good telltale sign
of
the seriousness of a made-to-measure operation, or of course a bespoke tailor. Normally, you don't have to ask this. Inside the pocket, there should be a little bag with big buttons for the jacket, small button for the sleeves. It's extra button. This is very important, and I can confess. Now, after all these years, it happened to me sometime. I discovered 3, 4, or 5 years after. Wearing the suit many times that I have buttons in my pocket.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
But this is the sign of a very, very serious house.
Yes.
Well,
this is the list. I hope I didn't exhaust everyone because we got into some really nitty-gritty details.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea.
And so, of course, we're going to timestamp this so you can browse through if you need to. But I hope that it was helpful. And thank you for your input.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people will take away a couple of things.
Yes.
Me personally, I take away almost all of them, except I'm still thinking about the low armhole. And I don't see any solution except to prevent it. Prophylaxis is always better than healing.
That's it.
That's for
Absolutely.
sure. Thank you, darling.
All right. Anybody have any other ideas, any other solutions that we didn't think of? Please put them in the comments, and we're very appreciative of that. And so until next time,
cheers,
cheers.
everybody. Cheers, darling.
Cheers to you.